casting. Full screen. Okay. Resuming share. Oop. There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are here today for our last How Do I Do That conversation. The past two have been really great. If you haven't had a chance to catch them, we will have the recordings up next week, so you can check those out. We had a really great conversation yesterday with Rochelle Riley from the city of Detroit and Lisa Sauvé, who was working with the Ann Arbor Art Center. My name is Adam Desjardins, and I am the programs manager at Culture Source. We are a regional arts service organization based in Detroit, but working with the 7 counties of Southeast Michigan. We do that work through programs like this one that you're currently at, re-granting opportunities to support our sector, and then also through research too, that helps inform trends and topics and areas of opportunity within the arts and culture sector and beyond. So this is a part of our symposium, an online public art symposium called Watch This Space, which is a part of our work with Mural Arts Philadelphia. As I said, we've had a few programs before this week, and we are continuing on with today's program, which I'm really excited about to hear from David and Ajara. And we have a program tomorrow with Jane Golden, the founder of Mural Arts Philadelphia. If you haven't had a chance to hear from her before, I highly recommend you join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. She is really amazing to listen to, and honestly, every time I hear something come out of her mouth, I'm just fanboying away. So please join us for that conversation tomorrow. And then next week, we'll be sending out a recording of programs, some blog posts that we commissioned from artists in the region that highlight their favorite work. So something that'll kind of take you off the screen to go see some actual public art in the neighborhood or in the space or the community that you live in. And then also save the date for our biannual member meeting. That'll be October 14th, and we're featuring Of, By, For All, which is a really amazing organization focused on accessibility to arts organizations. How can arts organizations be of, by, and for all? So really interesting stuff from them, and then also the Lewis Prize for Music. Last thing I'll say too is check out our Creators of Culture grant program, which is geared towards artists and venues. It's open right now, and we're accepting applications, so please check that out on our website. All of this is a part of the Detroit Month of Design, which is a program of Design Corps Detroit. Detroit is the only UNESCO City of Design in the United States, and we're super proud of that. And so Design Corps has come up with this amazing schedule and program of celebrating that designation every September. And so we're glad that this program is a part of that series. Our symposium partners for this online symposium are the Live6 Alliance, which I'm joined here by Ajara today, which is really exciting. And then also Mural Arts Philadelphia, because we're a part of the Mural Arts Institute. We're really grateful for all their thought partnership and work on, basically public arts programming and where is that going and where is it at? Lastly, huge thank you to our partners. We have some really amazing funding partners, and they help us support our work, and also are really great partners in thinking through our work and advancing it. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to them. The very last thing from me is just to pass it along to Deb, who is joining us from Missouri, but is normally based in Ann Arbor and works with the Arts Alliance there. So Deb, the floor is yours, and thanks to all of you for joining us today.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate this very much. Very much enjoy being part of this project. How do I do that? Always a good question. And thanks Culture Source for sponsoring this. And we have a very, very short period of time here. So we are going to speak with our guest and hear what they have to say and share with us. And then, so about 8 minutes for each one of them, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards. So I'll moderate those questions. And I'm not going to spend much time about who I am and whatever, but we're going to get right to it with Ajara, who, as Adam said, is with Live6 Alliance. And I'll have to say that one of the things I really loved about your bio, Ajara, was that you collect experiences rather than things that aid in sparking innovation. So I think that's awesome. Let's hear about your project and how you do that.
Thank you, thank you. So I am the program manager at Live6 Alliance, which is a very hyper-local organization based in the northwest side of Detroit. We're a community development and planning organization, and so my job has been to really try to look at our placemaking initiatives and how we can try to infuse art and culture into our everyday life. And I'm very happy to be able to do that because I myself am an artist, so I live in the intersection between art and how it is represented in our community. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
So you're going to go ahead and get us into your screen and share your project with us.
No problem. Hold on 1 second.
And we're going to keep our fingers crossed that technology works the way it's supposed to.
Exactly. But I'm here and I did it. I'm so happy. So with Live6, I hope you all can see
there we go.
What we try to do is really focus on this work within our boundaries. So we already had a project called the Detroit Neighborhoods Arts Project that we installed murals that were very resident focused and really drawn on the principles of our organization. And then with our application process and our community council, we chose artists, a local artist by the name of Chaz Miller. Chaz has been in this work, grinded it out for many years, and you know, it's a real testament of what art looks like in the city of Detroit. And throughout that process, again, like we partnered with Culture Source for this, we really wanted to figure out like what were some of the assumptions that we were thinking about when we focused on art. And it was our assumption that art went hand in hand with community. And so during the application process and when we selected the artists, we found out that in Detroit, and I'm sure maybe in other cities across the country, that it's a stark difference between artist commission and artists actually doing like community focused work, and what that means to take a step back as an artist to really try to have resident participation inform the work. So with that being said, what we did is we had a lot of community engagement and participation where we would set up shop right in the community, and Chaz, Live6, and all of us would really have engagement sessions on, you know, design and what that looks like and how to inform our mural going forward. And the theme of it was walkability. And so what we really wanted to make sure is that people got out, enjoyed the work, and enjoyed the art, and just wanted to have it in the foundation of our pillars at Live6. And so I'm just going through slides so you can see what this engagement looked like, what our artist council looked like. And it was some real stressful times for all of us, you know, just doing, you know, being the artist and having people critique your work, and just stepping back to say, okay, you know, this is of benefit for me. And, you know, and also part of our work, we had really workshops with artists coming in to learn new techniques and things that are coming out of Mural Arts Philadelphia, like the largest arts institution in the nation, and being able to have those discussions and one-on-ones with our community of artists. And so it's just this is just like a real fast forward into all of the art and all of what we did. And this is the finished project that is on Puritan and Ohio Street, right at the corner. So I don't know if I just like breezed through that, but I'm sure, like, if there are questions, people are going to ask me. But that's
you got Ajara. You have about a minute left. Just very quickly, kind of a very fast community response to it, since it's been up.
Well, the community response to it, I would definitely say, was very positive throughout this whole process. We had about 15 engagement sessions, and we went to block club meetings, and it was a multi-layered engagement process where we engaged people on just painting on the wall. We engaged people on what they wanted to feel and look, and like to engage all of their senses, and so I do believe, because this is what the community asked for. The mural is called What We Want. What we want is education, and it really tracks the progress of the Fitzgerald neighborhood. It really speaks to the music that was very prominent in the neighborhood, to the foundation of the church, to how we want, as a community, as a people, to be able to be in partnership with our law enforcement, and like what that looks like. And
that's
so
great. Well, thank you very much, and we'll get to questions after we hear from our next guest, David Andersson, who is going to tell us a little bit about himself and his projects with Bloomberg Philanthropies and the Asphalt Art Initiative. So David, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Deb, and thank you, Adam, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Is my screen sharing, does it look okay?
It's perfect.
Okay, great. So I am on the arts team at Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is Mike Bloomberg's charitable foundation, and I'm here today to talk about the Asphalt Art Initiative, which is one of our programs that constitutes the production of a how-to guide and a grant program, and I'll talk about those later. But what I really want to talk about is Asphalt Art. So the goal of this program is to help cities use art and community engagement to improve street safety and revitalize public space. And at its core, Asphalt Art is really at the intersection of the arts and transportation. And so there are artists who are actually making these designs and implementing the projects, but they also require the buy-in and engagement of the city's Department of Transportation. And so through these collaborations, these projects can really have an outsized impact on the urban streetscape. So what is asphalt art? The way we've defined it is creative visual interventions on roadways. So that's like intersections, crosswalks, anything in the active right of way, pedestrian spaces like plazas or sidewalks that are next to roadways, but cars can't go on. And vertical infrastructure we're including as well, like utility boxes, underpasses, because they also need to involve the Department of Transportation in the same way. And the main goals of these kinds of projects are here, these three, the ones we've identified. Not every project meets all three goals, but these are kind of the organizing principles. So improving safety and mobility for pedestrians, using art to actually change the geometry of the street to make it safer for pedestrians and minimize crashes and unwanted interactions between cars and pedestrians. Also to activate new and underutilized public space, really reclaiming some of the road for space for green markets or public events, or just an extension of the sidewalk. And then the third is promoting community engagement and collaboration, because these kind of projects really lend themselves to community members coming out and being a part of the design process and the implementation process. And then of course, any events that happen on the artwork after the fact. So a couple examples, one from Mayor Bloomberg's time in New York City. This is an image of Times Square And so Jeanette Sadiq Khan, his transportation commissioner at the time, closed down a section of Broadway and hired an artist to paint a mural, tried it out as a pedestrian space, and then eventually this turned into a permanent pedestrian space, and it was bricked over and cars can no longer go on it. So it was like a temporary to permanent installation just to test it out. And with paint, you can do that. It's a lot easier than a larger scale infrastructure project. Another example here in Chicago, the art itself is not super complex. It's just a series of dots, but you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but they've actually extended the sidewalks into the street and made the crosswalks shorter for people to cross, given more space on the sidewalk for people to hang out or whatever they need to do, and also made it harder for cars to cut the curb. And so all in all, it's a safer pedestrian experience. A fun before and after in Bogota, Colombia. This is one of the projects that our transportation team at Bloomberg right now was involved in. They converted this traffic circle into a vibrant space. They studied traffic patterns and saw where cars needed to go, and used the rest of the space, made it into pedestrian space for people to hang out, and made it much clearer where people were to cross the street. Similarly, in Milan, another Bloomberg project, we carved out a section of this totally chaotic intersection and made a new plaza for people to hang out in, and also added in easier crosswalks and everything. So the first thing that we did last fall was we published this guide alongside Street Plans Collaborative, which is a tactical urbanism firm that does these projects. That's its primary goal. And this guide has a bunch of case studies of different cities that have done these kinds of projects, and also a step-by-step how-to section. And the goal of this guide is to show that these are really achievable, these projects, for cities and communities of all sizes. And many of the projects in the guide actually were only a few $1,000s, which in the grand scheme of transportation infrastructural projects is really cheap. And then alongside the publication of the guide, we launched a grant program, and we announced 16 cities as our inaugural winners. And they're implementing their projects over the course of the next year. They each got $25,000 to run with and to install projects of all different kinds that fall within the asphalt art realm. And our first project is being installed this Saturday in Saginaw, Michigan. We're really excited. They're having a 24-hour paint-a-thon and painting 3 intersections. They have 17 artists engaged. They're bringing in community members to volunteer to participate in the painting day, and it's going to be an awesome event right in downtown Saginaw. So super excited to talk more about this. Glad to be here. And oh yeah, I had included my email and the website for more information if you have questions after this.
Well, thank you so very much. Both of these initiatives are really exciting, and I think the theme amongst that goes through both of them, and probably many others that are similar, is the engagement of community. And I think we'll get to that. So we're going to talk about questions. We're going to take questions from the group. And there was one first that came up early, and this was for Ajara. The question about artists being engaged and with community, and how artists respond to, in your case, the community being so involved and kind of helping them decide what they are going to do, and really having that input. Some artists, as I know, respond to that really well, and sometimes others don't. So what was your experience with that, and how did that work?
Well, we selected an artist that comes from a place of community-based work. And so Chaz really took on that engagement part and just ran with it. And I think that was the reason why the resident council chose him, because in his presentation and his application, he spoke to the fact about how he had like organized youth programs and projects. And that was the type of work that our initiative needed. I will say that we had a lot of artists in the process that would say like, oh, I'll just bring in my drawings and my projector, and then the community can pick from that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really what we were going at. And so I came from a place of ignorance, because I didn't know that was being done. Like, I really thought there was a connection with artists when you say like a community-based project, and for our artists to really understand what that was.
And I think, and David, you might respond to this, but oftentimes prior to an artist or an artist team being selected, there is that kind of an engagement to find out whether or not the artist or the team, the creative team, is amenable to working with the community, because some people just aren't. And that's okay, because that's their practice. But in these kind of community projects, it's really critical. Wouldn't you say, David, that they are able to and wanting to work with lots of people and input?
Absolutely. I think, you know, most of the projects that we've been a part of or that we've seen have been making that a requirement for the artists that are applying, you know, through an RFP or whatnot, that they're willing to work with the community. Also, often community members are involved even before the artists. If this project comes from the city's Department of Transportation or comes from a community group that wants to fix up an intersection, they might bring in members to start brainstorming what that might look like, you know, how the sidewalks might change, where you might add public space. And then based on those thoughts, they put out an RFP for an artist to basically fill what the community wants. And so in that regard, it's like the community is front and center in the design, really.
So let's talk about permissions, and I'll ask both of you this question. So Ajara, your project was on a building, and sometimes people come up with ideas and they want to do a mural, and sometimes it's a public building, sometimes it's a privately owned building, and you have to go through that process to get that done. How did you do that? Talk to us about that.
I hate to say that we just kind of guerrilla styled it, but we wanted the sun, the moon, and the stars in this project. However, how we pivoted was the fact that a lot of buildings in the city of Detroit, and maybe other cities, you have to chase down the owners. And so that was a process in itself. And so we just really knocked on doors to see who would be interested in having a mural there. And I think that if we had some type of process to where the city had more of a hands-on approach to how buildings are being like renovated and such, I think it would have made our process a lot easier. A lot of the buildings that we even looked at, you know, weren't structurally sound to even have a mural on there. So it was a lot of us going back to the drawing board and coming back to saying like, oh, okay, well, what about we do this? You know, us scaling back. You know, it was supposed to be 3 murals, but again, like we couldn't find enough buildings that were structurally sound to even get the work done. So I would definitely say it takes patience, but persistence and just door knocking, really.
And so, David, in your case, not only you're talking about streetscapes, and one of the questions, and I'm actually dealing with some of these right now in Ann Arbor. We're doing a tactical urbanism project. So sometimes you have city-owned streets, county-owned streets, state-owned streets, U.S. Federal-owned streets, and then there are people that are willing to look beyond current regulations. So how do you deal with all of that? That's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, Our tactic has usually been to start with the city. And so looking at city-owned streets, working with departments of transportation and convincing them that these are worthwhile projects and that these are actually going to increase safety as opposed to like disorient people who are driving. You know, artists don't need the convincing for these projects. It's oftentimes the city officials or the state officials. And so we have seen projects where, you know, there are intersections that are being painted along a city roadway, but then they get to an intersection that crosses with a state roadway and they can't get the permissions from the state DOT, or they think it's going to be too strict so that the artwork won't be that compelling anyway because of the types of colors they can use or where they can paint in the roadway. And so they just skip it entirely and don't even try. So we've definitely seen a lot of tensions there. I think a lot of our work at Bloomberg is trying to convince city transportation agencies that these kind of projects are worth it and are actually like, you get so much bang for your buck if you're thinking from their perspective that, you know, why not do that? And then of course you get some great art out of it.
So I actually literally am dealing with this right this minute. So a question, do you have proof of safety and mobility so that there are numbers and data that could be taken to a city transportation or a state transportation department?
So one of the requirements of our 16 projects that we're funding is that they track a set of metrics depending on what their goals are. So if their goals are safety, then they'll look at, you know, stop bar compliance and how dangerous it is basically for pedestrians to cross. And if it's more community focused, there'll be more community focused metrics. But so at the end of this year, we're hoping to have really compelling numbers from these projects that can really make the case. In the Asphalt Art Guide, there are a couple projects. There's one in Tucson, and I think the Times Square one as well, where we do have some numbers that show that cars actually drove more slowly over an intersection that was painted. They stopped at the crosswalk more, they were more likely to stop at the crosswalk and things like that. But there are only a few cases of that because often with these projects, they just happen so quickly and people aren't really tracking the metrics that can really make the case after the fact.
Critically important. Quickly, we have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to ask the question about maintenance. How important is it to include maintenance within the project design and budget for that in the long run? So David, quickly, and then Ajara.
Critical. I mean, it depends how long you want it to last. If you want it to last for a couple months, then fine, it can fade, whatever. If you want it to last for a few years, then you really need to have a plan for touching it up and thinking about the materials you're using and their longevity.
And how about in your project? Did you guys work that into it in the city project on the mural? Actually, this is for Ajara.
Oh.
Well, as far as us, yeah, and I would just definitely echo David. It really has to do with the type of materials you're using. And so like you really have to build that into your budget just to make sure that you have materials that are going to withstand the Michigan weather first, and then also like anything else that you have to do as far as touch up. And then I just want to go back and say that's why the buildings that you choose matters, because of the fact that it is very important to make sure that if you have, you know, for the longevity of the mural or any art installation, that you're picking the right spot, the right place so the art can live on.
I think,
and the
thank
same
you
with
so
the streets.
much. You know, there is a huge network, both nationally and internationally, for public art and design initiatives. And the technical urbanism, there's a great book on that. Your Asphalt book is fabulous. And so just know, folks, if you're out there looking at projects like this that you want to do and how do you do that, the Public Art Network on a national level is phenomenal. Really, really good resources out there. So do tap into that. So many things we think we're starting out from scratch on that no one else has ever done. There are people out there and you just got to start looking for them. So please stay connected and connect with these folks, I mean, experts in what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing what you know with all of us. And any last words, David, quickly?
Keep making art.
Excellent. And Ajara, anything else?
Agreed.
And Adam, thanks back to you for putting this together.
Well, thanks so much for moderating, Deb, and thanks again to Ajara and David for joining us. It was really fruitful conversation, and I just personally nerd out whenever I hear about people making the world a little bit more vibrant and colorful, especially those who are also artists. David's a practicing artist, and Ajara is a recent Kresge Fellow, so gotta give a shout out to that too. So thank you guys all for joining us again. It was really great to have you all. And make sure to check out the rest of our symposium. Also, I dropped a lot of links in the chat, so be sure to check out David's work, Ajara's work, and also Deb's work at the Arts Alliance in Ann Arbor too. We're really thankful again for all of you for joining us, and we hope to see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Jane Golden. For now, thanks for joining us for How Do I Do That? And take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.